Hi friends, and welcome back to Raft. If you're at all familiar with my channel, you probably know that I play a lot of Raft, and I love the mods that are available for the game. Chances are you've probably also seen this video of mine where I attempt to beat Raft with the smallest possible raft. If you haven't, I highly recommend checking that one out before continuing this one. The issue with that video is that I made it when I was still fairly new to the game. I hadn't even fully completed my first playthrough yet. I didn't understand the mechanics and the requirements for the game, but by now, I've held the world record in the most contested speedrun category a few times. That is to say, I've gotten a lot better at Raft. So, combining my new game knowledge and skills with the abundance of mods that I've featured on my channel, I'm gonna try and beat Raft with an impossibly small raft. Also, please note that I do visit all of the current story locations in this video, so if you want to avoid spoilers, I'd recommend this video instead. In that previous video, I only went to the top of the radio tower, which is the first story location. Now I can reliably reach that point in under an hour, so it's time to step up the challenge. First, let's lay out some ground rules. 1. The raft may not exceed 3 foundations at any time. 2. The raft must contain all essential features for living in the game. 3. The run ends when I get the code for Varuna Point, the last current code available in the game. Simple enough. And I mentioned some mods, so let's go over what those are. All of these are linked in the description, and if you want more information on them, I recommend checking out my mod showcases for a bit more detailed of an explanation. First up is building utilities. This mod basically allows me to ignore the requirements to place an object on my raft. Like, a sail typically requires at least 2 foundation to place, but can be placed anywhere with this mod. It's huge for making my raft as small as possible, otherwise I physically could not fit all of the antenna where I would need to reach a story location. Next is the voyage mod. To reach any story location after the cruise ship, you need an engine. With the voyage mod, we can mitigate that as it translates raft weight into speed, aka the smaller the raft, the faster you go with the sail. So that way we can bypass the minimum size of the 3 foundations needed just to have an engine. And the other crucial mod for this challenge is antenna everywhere. This removes the minimum distance requirement from the antenna and receiver themselves, so we no longer need to have the normal 2.5-ish meters between them, although it doesn't remove the elevation requirement, so we will still need to make one small bit of our raft above sea level. There are a few extra mods that I threw in just for fun, so keep your eye out for those. But without further ado, let's see if I can beat Raft with an impossibly small raft. To keep myself in line with Rule 1, I gave myself a stone axe when I loaded into the world, reducing the normal spawn raft of 4 squares down to 2. From there, it's a pretty standard gameplay of hooking in items and building up my early supply base until I can make it to the first small island. I learned my lesson from that last challenge and immediately made a spear as soon as I had the resources. I also placed 2 pillars, one on each foundation, so that if Jeremiah the shark decided to attack my raft while I was looting the island, it would still hopefully be there when I got back. Harvesting the island was also pretty standard gameplay. The biggest thing I knew I needed to be working towards was a smelter to reinforce my tiny scrap of raft to prevent Jeremiah from destroying my livelihood. Here's where my new game knowledge started to come into play. Jeremiah won't attack you if you are more than 30 meters away from him, so if I could make it to an island before dying, I could do a quick aggro reset on dry land while my raft just floated on past. From there, I could grab whatever resources I wanted without fear of dying to the shark. Raft is a bit weird in the fact that the world is actually loaded around your raft and not around you, the player, so after a bit, the island I was harvesting would just suddenly disappear. Then I can just AFK in the water for about 30 seconds, so I could unstuck, warp back to my raft, and start the process over again. It took about 4 islands using this method, but I finally had enough bricks to make 2 smelters, from which I rapidly smelted down 2 metal ingots that I could use to reinforce my raft. After a bit of reorganization and a brief altercation with some wildlife, I was finally ready to make my raft truly tiny. Raft has a few different options for foundation, which are meant to allow players to design fun and creative rafts without being limited to one shape or texture. And with the help of this comment, I realized that I could place 2 triangle foundations in the same square to meet the game's requirement of 2 foundation minimums without increasing the surface area of my raft. For anyone confused by what I mean with the 2 foundation minimum, basically Raft doesn't want you to have a raft smaller than 2 squares. If you do and one is destroyed, your raft disappears with no way to build another one. It's game over. If you manage to have one foundation by fluke, like I did in the original challenge video, you're at risk of your raft floating into the land, and it will not come out. So that's also a game over. But if I use the 2 triangle foundations in the same square, for some reason this convinces the game that everything is okay and we're good to go. With those 2 triangle foundations fortified and a bit of organization, it's just a waiting game of smelting down all of the materials required to make the receiver and antenna. At long last, both recipes were researched and finally ready to be placed. The receiver I plopped down just the same way I normally do when speedrunning. For some reason this is actually allowed in the base game, so no mods required. But the antenna I just don't have enough space for, so I used the building utilities mod to smack them all in the same place. And because of the antenna everywhere mod we talked about earlier, this layout is perfectly functional. So I plopped down a sail and pointed it in the direction of the glowing blue dot, and soon enough, thanks to the bonus speed of the Voyage mod, the radio tower loomed into view. Of course, I had to show off some of my speedrunning skills and land a jump that saves literally a couple of seconds, then retrieve the code for the cruise ship. Again, enter the code, point the sail in the right direction, and zoom towards my destination. After a brief bonk on some terrain, we arrived at this dilapidated monstrosity of a boat. Personally, this is one of my favorite locations to speedrun, so I'm gonna let this play through for a while. Third person in Raft is a bit janky, so speedrunners can use that to our advantage in this location, basically telling the game that because we're inside of the cruise ship on a lower level, we can open doors that we can see on the outside of the level above us, when normally you can only do that when you're right next to those doors on the right level. So we use this method with a set route to get through this area in less than 5 minutes. For reference, it took me about 2.5 hours the first time I reached this place in my casual playthrough. So after hopping up a few levels using this third-person glitch method, we finally get the code to Balboa Island and off we go again. I know that I said the cruise ship was my favorite location to speedrun, but Balboa Island is just such a close second. Where the cruise ship shows off some fun and interesting tech, surviving Balboa is all about routing. So we start off at the South Beach, working our way over some rocks, and just drop right into the cave behind Mama Bear. This means we don't have to worry about collecting berries and distracting her and all that fun stuff. We can just grab the machete and start yeeting yourself across the island as fast as your little legs can carry you. Fun fact, you can actually hit the box to lower the bridge with your hook, so you don't need the stones at all. From here, you just work your way up the tower, hit the box, then walk to the cave where you need to cut some vines with the machete you just got. Again, up the tower, hit the box, and jump back down. From here, you yeet yourself off of a big cliff and hope you have enough health to live. I accidentally aggroed this bear, but we can make quick work of that and add another hat to our little collection. This part is where you normally do some platforming across a poison lake, but with a little parkour we can just jump around that spiky fence that you're not supposed to be able to jump around, and that's the final tower. So off to Caravan Town we go! Now you know I'm going to show you something interesting for Caravan Town. Normally when you reach this location you're supposed to solve a number of puzzles and work your way through the island to get a zipline and finally reach the infirmary and the mayor's office. Yet any percent just skips all that. In Raft, there's a super fun glitch that's really easy to pull off. All you need is a ladder and a bed. Simply get into the bed while you're on a ladder, wake up, and boom, you're flying. And yes, this is actually part of the base game and not at all affected by the mods we have here. It does make this white screecher significantly easier to fight though. So it's just to bop over to the infirmary, grab the keys, float on over to the mayor's office, and we already have the code to Tangaroa. Because of our tiny Raft rules, I sadly can't show you the full potential of Tangaroa speedrunning in this video. So instead we'll have to do the bottom part normally. Fortunately, our little friend makes quick work of all the rats. I don't know why, but the rats are the one animal in this game that actually scare me. but luckily I got the achievement for killing 50 of them during this run. Anyways, once we solve all the normal problems and make it up to the surface inside the bubble, I can just open one of the outer doors and re-enter ladder state to fly up to the bridge in the middle. That skips all of the apartments and collecting tape and all that nonsense. Touch the blue ladder to exit ladder state, ride up the elevator to the final floor, enter the code, and yeet myself off the bubble down to the now floating bridge. A quick swim and a little run later, and we have it. That's the code to Varuna Point, and I've finished all the story locations currently in the game. I think we did a pretty good job of fitting everything on this tiny, tiny raft, filling my conditions of having all of the essentials to live with a grill, a water purifier, the double smelters, 2 chests, research table, the antenna, receiver, and the sail. The only thing that was ever really combined were the antenna, but again, those simply would not have fit regardless. So that's where we're gonna call it. I hope you enjoyed me beating Raft with an impossibly small raft. Please leave a like if you did, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I have a lot of great videos in the works that you won't want to miss out on. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.